Well, the fight everyone has been asking for has been officially announced. Floyd Mayweather will meet Manny Pacquiao on May 3rd Australian time in a welterweight showdown that will be the richest fight in boxing history. Mayweather himself announced the bout on Friday after months of negotiations, posting a picture of the signed contract online. Mayweather could earn $155 million or more, while Pacquiao's split of the purse will likely be around the $103 million mark. And for more on the super fight, I caught up with boxing commentator Paul Upham. I started by asking him why now, after this fight seemed to be on and off so many times over the last couple of years.
6 years this fight's been brewing, and we did not last year think it was going to happen at all. They were meant to fight the 13th of May 2010. They tried to get in 2012. They couldn't get it done. It seemed to turn this year on January 27. They accidentally bumped into each other at an NBA basketball match in Miami, and Pacquiao and Mayweather spoke in person for the first time at halftime. And after the game, they went back to Manny Pacquiao's hotel suite and talked for an hour. That seemed to be the impetus to make this fight. And with so much public pressure after 6 years, I think Floyd Mayweather realised that he had to make this fight now.
Give us an idea of some of the numbers at play here, financially and professionally for the fighters, because they're quite staggering.
The estimate take at this stage, they're looking at $400 million between the two television networks, Showtime and HBO. That'd be $200 million pot for the fighters. Mayweather's getting a 60-40 split, so $120 million US for Mayweather, $80 million for Manny Pacquiao. Those sort of figures dwarf all other sports people around the globe for paydays for one night. It's simply staggering. It will break the record of American pay-per-view buys, which is $2.5 million for Oscar De La Hoya versus Floyd Mayweather. Whoever wins this fight, they're both going to be very, very rich boxers and rich men.
Yeah, if they weren't already, that's for sure. Now, the fight has long been seen as a way to settle the great argument of who's not only the best fighter in the world, but also the best of the modern era. Mayweather has also said it'll be the biggest event in the history of the sport. Now, there's some big claims. I want to know where you, a man who knows boxing inside out, stands on all those fronts.
Look, Floyd Mayweather for the last decade has been the pound-for-pound #1 best fighter in all weight classes, and Manny Pacquiao has really been his #2. It's unusual that two fighters around the same weight class have not fought for such a long period of time. Ultimately, people are going to look back on the fight. Does it live up to the expectations? Is it a really good, exciting fight? If it's a very boring defensive match, people look back and say, well, it wasn't that good. A great fight we've seen in the past was like a Tommy Hearns versus Marvin Hagler. It only went 3 rounds, but people remember it because it was such an exciting fight. So you just can't put the two best fighters in the world together. They've got to deliver and they've got to entertain the fans. Yeah,
it's an interesting take on that, actually. We all think it's going to be a cracker just because they're going to line up, but you never know what's going to happen once they get in there. There was some doubts over the direction of Pacquiao's career at one stage, what it was taking when he suffered back-to-back losses back in 2012. He's now won 3 on the spin, while Mayweather, of course, has never tasted defeat. Are we getting these two fighters at their absolute best, or is that period passed a little bit?
Look, Manny Pacquiao's 36. Floyd Mayweather turns 38 next Tuesday. No, they're not at their best. They're not what they once were. They're still very good fighters, and clearly Floyd Mayweather is an elite fighter in any division around the world. Floyd Mayweather, I think he's got much more to lose. He is undefeated, 47-0. He claims to be the greatest fighter of all time. He's not. He would be competitive in any era, but he's not the greatest fighter of all time. But look, today he's pound-for-pound #1. I think, though, on the good side is they're very evenly matched. Even though that they're not what they once were, you got guys who they've won 10 world titles between them. The 5-division world champion for Mayweather. Pacquiao's the only ever 8-division world champion. So you're talking about 2 of the best of all time.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, I know you spoke just before about we don't really know what we're going to see when these two do get in the ring, but you've seen enough of them yourself throughout their respective careers to perhaps plot a course for this fight. Do we know how it's going to end up? And I want your tip as well for who do you think is going to be the one with his hand held up at the end?
Mayweather is one of the greatest defensive fighters of all time. He nullifies the attack of his opponents, and then he wins enough rounds to win on points. He's never been an out-and-out knockout puncher like, say, a Mike Tyson. But Manny Pacquiao is he's very fast. He's a left-hander. He's a southpaw. So Mayweather's only fought a few of those, and he throws fast punches and lots of combinations. The question is, can he land one on Mayweather's chin and hurt him and maybe knock him to the canvas? Mayweather's very good at defending that sort of attack. And I think at this stage you have to lean towards Mayweather on points because he's such a defensive, skillful fighter. But I expect a close fight, and I think Manny Pacquiao will have his stages where maybe he can land a knockout punch.
Yeah, it's going to be an amazing fight. The sporting world will no doubt stop and be taking notice of every movement and every utterance in the lead up to the fight, as well as will you, Paul Upham, boxing commentator extraordinaire. Thanks very much for your time. We do appreciate it here on Sports Night.
Thanks, Luke.
He's one of the best in the biz, Paul Upham. Well, time for a break here on Sports Night. Plenty more ahead as Phillip Island proves a tricky task for several of the fastest men on two wheels. We'll have horsepower of a different kind coming up too. And we'll have the best 10 from the past 7 with the plays we pay.